Friday, and it's 4 p.m. Eastern. So we are here at Litvak Leadership Live, whether you're here on Facebook, YouTube, or even Twitter. I'm Sean Litvak, as you probably know, and I'm here with my special guest, Michael King. I'll introduce him fully in a moment. But hey, if you're not already following and liking Litvak Leadership on Facebook or subscribed to Litvak Leadership on YouTube, why not? What is holding you back? I encourage you to get on over there, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you get notified of each and every broadcast. This is our standard broadcast on Friday afternoons, but we have pop-up broadcasts that appear during the week too. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to Michael King. Michael is the founder and owner of Transformational Coaching and Consulting, LLC. I think legally it's important that I say that. And so, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am excited to have you on. You had reached out to me quite some time ago on Facebook when I was looking for individuals who would be interested in being on the show, and it's good to have you on. I think we have a smarmy comment. I would, but it's your wife's birthday. Actually, that's tomorrow. It's the birthday weekend, and that's why. Yeah. So I'm not even going to go into that. Thank you, Tim, for making me stutter somewhat, ever so slightly. So, all right. So, Michael, let's jump right into it. Why the name Transformational Coaching and Consulting?
Well, multiple reasons, but ultimately, what I really try to focus on is getting people through a process.
All right.
We have that old cliche, the caterpillar to the butterfly type of thing. And so that's kind of where I was thinking is to get people from where they are. And lots of times they just kind of feel stuck, and to try to get them through a growth process so that they can become the person that they're trying to become.
Okay. And so when did you start helping people transform in that way?
Oh, officially, probably back when I was in the airborne infantry in the Army. It wasn't an official job, but whenever you're in the military, particularly, my experiences with the airborne infantry, you get guys that come to us, straight out of airborne school. They go to boot camp, airborne school, they come to us, and they're very green. I was green. I went through the same process. And I've had good formal leaders, sergeant, staff sergeant types.
Sure.
But then you have the informal leaders, just the influential people that's in that squad, in that platoon, that kind of helps guide you through that process and helps you become a part of the team and comfortable, learn your role. Kind of when you make the mistake and you get yelled at by the sergeant, your squad leader, you have this other person that kind of says, yeah, so this happened to me before, so just handle it this way. This is how you get through that. So
who do you think people learn more from, formal leaders or the informal leaders?
Informal, for sure.
Why?
Formal leadership is great. I think it's absolutely necessary. But there's also, when you have formal leadership, there's I don't want this guy to know the areas where I'm ignorant. I don't want to look bad to this guy because it affects my promotion. It affects how I'm going to get a raise. But the informal leader is that peer-to-peer where you can be more vulnerable to without worry of consequence. I can let him know or her know that I don't know how to do this thing, whereas my formal leader kind of expects me to know how to do that. And now I look like I don't know what I'm doing or what my job is. So that's why I think the informal leader is better. But if you have a really good, psychologically safe environment, you can kind of creep into that formal leadership and have that comfort of asking those questions. But I still think human nature is going to have you asking your peer before you ask your boss.
So when you say psychologically safe environments, forgive me, so I just want to write that down. For some reason, the word snowflake comes to mind, but I'm hoping that's not what you're talking about, where we need to pet people to have them grow. What exactly are you talking about with psychologically safe environments?
Okay, psychologically safe environment, because first of all, that whole snowflake kind of environment, I think, makes people weaker instead of stronger, and it actually goes against leadership. But there still needs to be a psychologically safe place where a person feels comfortable asking questions. In the safety realm, where I spent 15 years of my life, I needed to get frontline leaders to behave in a manner so that the person's first day on the job can stop work that's unsafe and feel safe doing so, because we don't want somebody to die, right? And for an example, psychological safety in that environment means that when a green person says, hey, stop, I see something, that they get an explanation. All right. So maybe that person is right and everything was unsafe. And then, we are very thankful. We give that new person kudos. But at the same time, the psychological safety comes in response where that green person is wrong. And the response would be to explain to him why it is safe, or explain to her why it is safe, and then continue on, as opposed to calling him names, calling him stupid, and now that person is never going to speak up again. So that's really where psychological safety is. It's so you can say something.
You're just talking about bad leaders. If someone is calling someone, going, hey, stupid, why are you doing it that way? Should that person even be a leader?
Exactly. And I guess that goes right into that whole concept where I feel people that are doing good work may not be the person slotted to become a leadership position, just because the person.
Look, there's the banner right there. The best producers aren't necessarily your best leaders. So tell us about that, because some people would think that, if someone is hammering it in sales, well, they should lead the sales team. What are your thoughts about, or someone's an incredible operator, well, they should have an entire organization reporting to them to duplicate themselves. What do you think about that?
So I think that's a mistake for the most part. All right.
Okay.
Just because a person can, kick out 1,000 widgets and the next top person can only kick out 800 widgets, doesn't mean that higher producer is capable or even desiring to lead others. They may like producing widgets and they may hate having to interact with others and deal with personalities and that time. They may be focused on, I just want to produce widgets, so leave me alone and let me produce. And then you promote that guy or girl. He or she's going to see the money. Yeah, I want more money, and maybe take the position that they're not suited for. Right. And now you're taking a top producer off the line, and you're decreasing your production because you removed your top producer. But isn't that a function of lack of sales training?
I mean, if I've got someone reporting to me who's just making things happen, and I go, hey, I want you to manage these other people, and they haven't done that before, isn't it incumbent on the person who's promoted them to equip them with what they need?
Yes, but this is what I've seen, is that they don't equip them. They just get the promoted, and now they're out there trying to figure it out. All right. So to me, the best way to do it is to identify people early on. Companies should have a succession plan. All right. And you should identify people even before they get their first leadership position. Who are these people that we project to be the next leaders, and then start investing in leadership training for those people. All right.
When you talk about invest in leadership training, I mean, what we're talking about is here, provide leadership training before leadership is required. But I can tell you in my own leadership journey, and I talked about this on the Manager Mirror with Bradley Byland. If you all haven't heard that podcast where I was actually the guest, check it out, the Manager Mirror. Just Google it. Bradley does a great job, and he interviewed me for like 40 minutes. I had no idea I could talk so much. That's a lie. I knew I could talk that much. But anyways, providing leadership training before the leadership is required. And what I talked about was how when I was promoted into my first real leadership role, my boss lived, 9 hours away. And this is before cell phones, anything. I was on the phone with my boss every single day saying, okay, this is what's happened. This is the situation I ran into. Here's how I handled it. It went well. It didn't go well. Talk to me. Tell me what you think. And he had told me for the first 18 months, I'd be talking to him every single day. And I hear what you're saying about providing leadership training before leadership's required. But how do you decide if you're going to do it in mass? Don't you have to do it with all kinds of people as opposed to a mentorship program? Or what exactly are you talking about?
I think there's different ways of doing it. So it depends on the structure of your company. I think you can do these things at team levels. So if you have a sales team, if you got a dozen salesmen, maybe it's for this particular department. You could do department at a time, and do some of that training early on. Because I ask you called your boss every single day.
Every day.
What happens if that boss is in an airplane crash and he's not available to you?
I would not have had a training program. I would have had to have called his boss.
All right. So the idea is to prep people in advance so that the number of times you call your boss can be diminished, and that frees him up to do other things because you're better prepared for the role. All right.
So let's look at my career and tell everyone how you would have done it then. I was a salesman, rocking it, taking names, closing business, and they said, fine, Mr. Smarty, we're going to move you into operations and operations leadership in addition to selling. And I had really no supervisory experience at all. So should they have had the forethought to have trained me in that in advance, or what do they do when they realize that they've got to have a massive change in leadership? What does an organization do?
Ideally, they should have the forethought, and that's why I'm a firm believer in succession plans. Every position should have a designated person for backfill, and it takes time, and it changes because you designate Sally to be your replacement, and then Sally finds another company, and so now you have to find another person to be that backfill. And the people that's on that backfill should be the focal point of training. So that person that decided to promote you into that position, you should have been trained on, interpersonal communication, crucial conversations, group dynamics, things of that nature, so that you are able to understand the people that you're now in charge of, understand their communication styles, what methods to use that they receive. I mean, some people need to have that, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend, before, launching into a workplace conversation. Other people are like, just get to the point. You don't need to know about my weekend. So you need to learn that. And I think without that leadership training, you go up to a person and they say, you don't need to know my weekend. What do you want from me? Now your feelings are hurt. And if you don't have a higher EQ, emotional intelligence, it starts to build rifts, and that breaks up teams. And when teams start to break up, you lose efficiency, you lose productivity, you lose sales.
So how do you help individuals and organizations identify those people that should get the leadership training? And then the follow-up question to that is, when I was first entering leadership and I was given all this responsibility, I didn't get no scratch for it. I got nothing. And that was the company I worked for. But I had always heard the adage, you raise yourself into the role and then the money is there. And it seems like a lot of people today want to be paid before they're trained. What say you about that?
Okay, so there's multiple parts to this question. First,
Yeah.
How do I help the companies identify the people? All right. So to be honest with you, the companies already know who they are. They just haven't been asked the question. So I go in there. So if a company brought me on to help them out, the first thing I would do is a consult. What are our expectations? What are we trying to accomplish? What's our goals? What's our time frames? All right. Once we get all that in place, then we go into that. Well, who are our people? And that's when you start getting you get people in a room together. All right. You get the lower level managers to the upper level managers in that same room, and you have that conversation. If I sense that they don't have that psychological safety, if I feel that the frontline workers aren't going to speak up, then I'll meet with each group separately. Give me a chance to talk with the frontline workers, and I'll get all the information from them. Then I'll get with the middle managers, then I'll get with the executives, and then I'll get all the opinions and perceptions down. And then from that, we'll be able to see what's consistent through all those groups. And that's great. And we can set that aside as truths. And then we can see where the conflicts are. And those conflicts, that's where we get to do our work. Why do we have these conflicts?
So it sounds like to me you're talking about management by committee. Is that what you're suggesting, or am I misunderstanding you?
Change management, to me, change management works best when as many of the effective people get to be participants in the change as opposed to told what the change is. And you need to get the information from all levels so that you're fixing problems and not trying to fix things that you perceive to be a problem when it's not really a problem.
So where does vision casting of the leader of the organization come into play? I mean, because I'll tell you, I've had experience of, management by committee, and every single time I have been put in a situation like that, it crashed and burned because there were people involved that had their own fiefdoms that they wanted to defend and saw it as an opportunity to push themselves to the forefront to make themselves look good, and the committee be damned.
Right, I've seen that too. And what happens is they get lost in the team. So what happens in those management by committee things like that is they start to see their little circle as their team, and they forget that the entire business is one team. It's like if you did it like football, they might be the offense, and they have forgotten that there's a defense and a special teams attached to that team, and they ignore that. So sometimes you have to address that and reinforce that there's this whole team. But ultimately, the top level leaders provide the vision. All right. And then that vision gets to be pushed down. And you need to have those other leaders in those different departments that are supporting that vision. And you do that by making it a shared goal, having people agree that these are our goals. And that's how you hold accountability without accountability being a punishing word. All right. So, hey, we decided we're going to do this. This is what success looks like to me, to you, to him. We're struggling in this one area. So what can we do to improve this area? And it's not, I'm holding you accountable because it's helping.
So if you're bringing in, people from every single level, and I'm thinking of different industries that I've been in, doesn't that act itself counterintuitively to the best producers aren't necessarily your best leaders?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because if you bring in a producer who simply doesn't want to be a leader, they're not going to be able to get that change that you're trying to create in your company.
Okay.
So if I'm a sales guy and all I want to do is sales, and then suddenly I'm promoted to being a director, and now I'm doing maybe a little bit less sales and more people management. If I'm just the jerk to people, everybody, all the sales numbers are probably going to go down.
Sure.
You're likely to start losing salespeople, and it's very damaging to the company. So maybe that highest producer isn't the right person for that job, but maybe the guy standing next to him or in the office next to him who's producing a little bit less, but maybe has the better personality traits. Maybe he's more intuitive on personality cues and can communicate better that way. Maybe he's just, informally influential, and maybe that's the guy that you need more so than the top producer.
So when you talk about life coaching, and I want to fold this into our current conversation, whenever I hear people talk about life coaching, it seems to be touchy-feely, ooey-gooey, not necessarily business coaching, doing things for the organization, but getting oneself together. Do you see a place where life coaching and leadership intersect with one another? I mean, business leadership intersect with one another, or do you see them as separate entities?
I see them as connected. All right.
Okay.
For one, if your personal life is going in the toilet, typically it affects your professional life. All right.
Typically it does.
Also, if you're a hard charger at work and trying to get promoted and you're unable to, and you're not sure what's going on, and you start getting frustrated, that also affects the family life. All right. I've talked with a person, and she was definitely a hard charger. She was doing great work and having some struggles. And when she gets home, she's a little bit short-tempered. And also, she likes to just kind of vent. And the person to vent to is her husband. And so she just kind of dumps on him. And what happened was it actually started decreasing the value of that relationship. It became the more arguments, less joy. All right. So we worked through that and determined that, we got to do something else to fix this, because we can't just be dumping on the husband all the time. All right. So, and that's how, one of the ways that they intertwine. Life coaching, I have a life coach. All right. Life coaching meets the needs of the individual. All right. So if you're trying to get from that first leadership position into an executive position, lots of times you'll want a life coach. They're not going to give you the secret formula, but they talk with you and they find out where your conflicts are, where you're struggling, and they provide that clarity. So my thing is, the clarity is in the coaching. We often create our own roadblocks, our own obstacles, and what we need is someone that has the right questions so that we can go, oh, so this is what I need to do. So
what kind of framework do you have to help people transform, from worker to leader to trainer to having their life together?
Well, it's tough. It's kind of like therapy in a way. I mean, I'm not a therapist. Okay. I'm not going to go in that direction, but there are definitely some similarities. There is no class or curriculum that's going to fit everybody. So everything I do is tailored to that individual. All right. each individual has their own struggles, their own strengths, the things that they're trying to resolve. And so the way I do it is I do a consult first, and I get the gist of what they are wanting to work on. And then I ask questions just to clarify that's really what they want to work on, because sometimes they think this is the problem, but digging in a little bit, that's actually just a symptom and not the problem. We have to get more into what the problem is and address that. So everything is going to be tailored to that individual and what their goals are.
So when someone first comes to you and says, I'm not getting promoted, I know I can do more, I'm not sure what my issues are, what's the first thing you ask them?
The first thing I ask them is, why do you think you're not getting promoted?
Okay.
All right. So and actually, I've gotten some interesting answers because I've had a person give me some reasons that may or may not be true. It's because I'm older, I'm a woman, sexist. And what happens when they first start out, sometimes that's just feeling, but as they continue on, they start to dig into some potential truths. So because I'm older, I'm female, it's a male-dominated company, maybe I speak out too gruffly, maybe I just speak my mind, maybe I'm not a polite person, and now we start getting into things, right? So yeah, maybe there's something in that first levels, but if we can't control others, but if you're saying maybe I'm not polite, we can work on politeness. Maybe it's because I'm too direct and speak my mind. Well, we can work on those things. So you start to work on what you can control and influence, and when you fix those things, then that's going to leave those other things that in this case would be illegal and unethical to see if that's true or not.
Yeah, the road of emotional intelligence and knowing oneself it's like the Beatles. It's a long and winding road.
Yeah, I have a philosophy. You have to be honestly introspective with yourself, and if you are not disappointed or upset with some of the things that you learn about yourself during that introspection, you're doing it wrong. Right? If every time you're introspective, you come out as the good guy, you're not doing it right. You're not being fully honest with yourself.
So there is no one that is always the good guy.
No. I think of myself as a good guy, but I'm not perfect by any means. I've had my shares of mistakes. I'm not even in this position without the mistakes I've made in my life, because
Sure.
We learn more from our mistakes than we do from what we get right.
So if y'all are looking for Michael on Facebook, on LinkedIn, he's Michael King with a bunch of numbers and letters after his name. So take a quick snapshot of that. But he's easy to find when I was looking for him on LinkedIn. So Michael, let me ask you, what do you think is the most important first thing that someone needs to learn about themselves before they become a leader?
What they need to learn about themselves, I think they need to learn what their why is, and I kind of hate that answer, to be honest with you. But before they become a leader, they need to understand why do they want to become a leader. Because when you do, it's telling. I want to become a leader because I want more money. All right, that's one thing. That's probably not what a company is going to look for in a leader, is somebody that just wants more money. But if there's something more on the inside, you want to become a leader because you can make improvements. You want to become a leader because you want to help others develop. Why do you want to become a leader? And when you understand that, then there's a whole bunch of things that can be done to get you there.
Okay, so First, people need to understand that their why. They really need to, and frankly, yes, the easy answer is I want to make more money, but I think it's deeper than that for most people, although they don't necessarily realize it.
I think so too. I think in some places that I've worked, people wanted promotions for the money, and let me throw an industry under the bus. The construction industry that I've worked in, people want to become the foreman because they want foreman pay, right? And I think construction has a lot to gain from leadership training, because yes, foreman pay is great. But they don't realize how much other work foremen do, right? And I've talked with foremen, and I've heard a lot of them say, God, I miss just being a guy that's on the tools and not having to do with all this other stuff.
Sure.
So, but
if you can't manage yourself, you certainly can't manage other people well. Right.
At least not for very long.
At least not for very long. So, Michael, we've gone 32 minutes on a 30-minute show. We've touched a lot of topics. I'm going to hand it over to you right now for you to give everyone your insight as they move into the weekend as to what you think the most important aspect of leadership is.
I think the most important aspect of leadership is to make the people around you better. It's a little bit of servant leadership. I do have that as a philosophy. That doesn't mean you give up on yourself. It means you take the time to make sure everybody else around you is successful. And when those people are successful, you'll find as a result that you're successful yourself.
Absolutely. If one cannot have a successful team, then it's their fault and they're going to fail.
Yep.
So everyone, this is Michael King with Transformational Coaching and Consulting. You can find him here on LinkedIn. If you're having trouble finding him, just direct message me and I will point you in his direction. Michael, it's been great having you on the show. We've had a lively conversation and you handled me challenging your ideas rather well. So I appreciate that. Sometimes people don't like that, but we have a little bit of a different perspective, you and I, but I appreciate your point of view.
All right. Thank you for having me.
You bet. And everyone else, that's Litvak Leadership Live for today. Again, go on to Facebook, hit like at Litvak Leadership, go on the YouTube, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. You'll get notified of these broadcasts. Next week, we're having a special Wednesday edition. Frankly, because Friday doesn't work next week. So it's a special Wednesday edition all about what should you be doing between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Those 98 days of summer, what should you be doing? I'm going to be having my good friend and colleague, Eric Bam, on next week, where it'll be an equally lively conversation as how to motivate oneself. That's it for Litvak Leadership Live. Everyone, have a great weekend. Bye now. Be blessed.